The Cimmerians are one of the more enigmatic peoples of antiquity. They are first noted in Assyrian sources in about the year 714 BC, during which time they left their homeland in the southern Caucasus and made an irruption into the region of Uishtish in the kingdom of the Mani. A response by Rusas, king of Urartu, proved to be disastrous, with the king retreating from the Cimmerians' homeland in a state of deep depression and justified fear, for Sargon of Assyria was only too happy to capitalize with his own invasion of Urartu. In terms of their origins, the Cimmerians are generally believed to have arrived in the Jimir of 714 from points north of the Caucasus. One striking theory which dissents from this view suggests that they were none other than the 10 lost tribes of Israel, deported to the regions around Assyria in the years prior to 714, but this is untenable. Aside from Homer's reference to Cimmerians in the Odyssey, which places them in permanent darkness, the earliest Greek source to mention them is Aristes of Proconnesus, quoted by Herodotus, who claims that they were expelled from the area north of the Black Sea by the invading Scythians. Herodotus states fancifully that the Cimmerian nobles killed one another on the Tiras, Dniester, their western border, with the remnant of the people traveling into Asia, where the fateful meeting with Rusas awaited them. From the time the Greeks were settling around the Sea of Azov, a number of toponyms associated with the Cimmerians appeared. The most famous of these is the Cimmerian Bosphorus, between the Kerch and Taman Peninsula, and earthworks in the region were also accredited to the Cimmerians. The city of Cimmerian, a Greek colony of the 7th century also known as Pso, was also founded. The Cimmerians were reported as active again in the general region of Mania between about 678 and 667. They were allies of the Medes under Kashtarati between 678 and 673 against Assyria, alongside the Manians and the Ishkuziya under one Ishparka. This latter group represents the first Assyrian notice on the Scythians. Their leader was killed in about 676 and was replaced by Bartachua, who made an alliance with Assyria later in the decade. Already, though, the Cimmerians had moved into Anatolia. There, they were defeated by the Assyrians at Hubushna in around 679, where the Cimmerian king Tushpa died. It is possible that the Greek tradition of the Scythian pursuit of the Cimmerians relates to events in the Mani area around this time. Once in Anatolia, though, the Cimmerians emerged as a major power, sacking Sinop on the coast and ending the independence of the Phrygians and menacing as far as the Greek colonies in the west. Though temporarily stymied by the Lydian ruler Gyges, enigmatic Assyrian texts hint that the Cimmerians had, by this stage, achieved a level of power to rival that great empire. It seems as though Phrygia, domain of the legendary king Midas, said to have taken his own life when the Cimmerians took his capital of Gordion, was made tributary in about 675. Thereafter, Phrygians, under the rubric of Mushki, appear as allies of the Cimmerians in their exploits in Tabal and Hilaku, regions in southeastern Anatolia in which they made their homes. This period saw the rise of the new Mamad dynasty in Lydia, a region of western Anatolia whose capital, Sardis, soon became a target for the Cimmerian king Dugdamme, known in Greek sources as Lygdamis. An initial assault in about 665 or 664 was repulsed by the Lydian king Gyges with the aid of the Assyrians under Ashurbanipal, though Gyges soon asserted his independence. Dugdamme, for his part, likely turned his attentions back towards the southeast, and may have held sway in parts of Syria, for by 657, Assyrian auguries seem to have regarded the Cimmerians as the preeminent power in the region. Sardis was eventually sacked, and Gyges killed, in around 643, a period in which the Greeks of Ionia were also hard-pressed by the Cimmerians. The temple of Artemis at Ephesus was razed and Magnesia on the Meander besieged. Inhabitants of the coast fled to the islands for up to 3 years while the Cimmerians enjoyed free reign. The city of Antandros, to the north of Lydia, was a major Cimmerian center, bearing the name Cimmerida. However, Ashurbanipal would once again provide a decisive intervention. Dugdamme's efforts to conquer Malid led to a military disaster and he was briefly forced to seek vassal status, which was broken in short order. Assyrian-Lydian relations were also resumed by Gyges' son, named in Greek sources as Ardis. Suffice to say that, by 640, Dugdamme was not a well man. Assyrian sources describe his final illness in prurient detail leading up to notices about his demise in Tabal and replacement by his son Sandaketru or Sandakuru. With Dugdamme's demise, the Cimmerians' power was greatly diminished. Notices about a second sack of Sardis in 637, in which they likely played a part in alliance with the Lycians and the Trirese, a Thracian people, under a king Kobos, would represent their last hurrah. Their old enemies the Scythians under Medes, son of Bartachua, were enjoying their own ascendancy, which saw them briefly eclipse the Medes and threaten as far as the borders of Egypt. It is Medes who is credited with ending the Cimmerians as a major force in Anatolia, with the great-grandson of Gyges, Alyates, also inflicting a decisive defeat. Rejecting Herodotus states for the Lydian kings, this event can be tentatively placed in about 630. The Cimmerian host, though, enjoyed something of an afterlife in both classical and Oriental sources, not to mention their embodiment as a square-jawed muscle man with an Austrian accent. The Persians knew of 3 groups of nomads they called Sakers. Translations into Akkadian use the term Cimmeri, Cimmerian, in place of Sakar. Also, probably largely influenced by Homer's name-a-king of the Cimmerians, later sources place them in Italy, as well as making the Cimmerians ancestors of the Cimbri, one of the earliest Germanic groups to break out of the north on a grand tour of destruction. Another Germanic group, the Merovingian Franks, claimed descent from the Sicambri, themselves derived from the Cimmerians of the Pontic steppes and ultimately from Priam's Trojans. Finally, early modern etymologists posited a connection between the Cimmerians and the Cymri or Welsh. All in all, not bad for an ephemeral group of invading nomads, I'm sure you'll agree.